Hi, I'm Alan and I'm driven to know, and welcome to my channel. I'm going to talk about the recent U.S. failure in Afghanistan, the Afghan debacle. I'm shocked, appalled, angered, just really upset at the recent collapse of the Afghan government. I'm sure you probably are too, because of all the tragic chaos and suffering that we've been seeing. I mean, it's a mess over there. And I feel all this because I really believe and think that we should have left there way back in 2002 or 2003. I mean, let's look at the facts. In 2001, the Taliban offered to surrender to the United States government, and Bush rejected the offer and refused to let them be involved in the interim government that they formed soon afterwards. As a defeated enemy, they would have been integrated into the interim government. And the U.S. position left the Taliban able to regenerate and strike back because they weren't involved in the government process. They were involved in, how can we get revenge on the Americans and the Afghan people who turned their back on us. And then, because George W. decided he needed to invade Iraq in 2003, we stopped paying attention to Afghanistan. We ignored Afghanistan. And we did this until the Taliban popped up again to bite us in the rear end in 2006. Looking back at the long, tragic series of events up to this point, we shouldn't be surprised at what's happening. I know that Biden is catching a lot of flack over our withdrawal, with all the chaos and suffering and failure it represents. But we need to remember something. Biden didn't start the war. Joseph R. Biden did not start the war. George W. Bush did. He started the war to go after the Taliban and Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the 9/11 Twin Towers tragedy, the Pentagon tragedy, and those folks that died in Pennsylvania when their plane crashed when they tried to take it back from the Al-Qaeda guys that were on board. Bush bears most responsibility for it because when he was president, all the things we talked about earlier, ignoring the Taliban, ignoring Afghanistan entirely because we have to go pay attention to Iraq, and we ignored Afghanistan. So Biden's catching flack over our withdrawal. But Biden didn't start the war. Bush did. And Bush, Obama, and Trump, they all bear more responsibility over this mess. Biden is catching the flack that he is because he decided to end it. Now, Trump made this big deal with the Taliban that freed 5,000 Taliban prisoners for nothing. He didn't get anything in return. No promises, no concrete proposals of anything. He just cut them loose as a confidence-building measure. So Trump cut this deal with the Taliban. Trump made peace with the Taliban. The United States made peace with the Taliban without including the Afghan government. The president of Afghanistan was left out. He didn't get a word in about any of this. And then Trump sent the pullout timetable. And then finally, if you look at the whole thing, Trump basically threw the Afghan government under the bus. That's right. Donald Trump threw somebody under the bus. I know it's hard to believe, but he did throw those people under the bus. So we can't blame Biden for some of the stuff that he's being blamed for. What we can blame Biden for is the sloppy, poorly planned withdrawal. Biden's planning failed because I think our military painted a too rosy picture of the actual situation in Afghanistan. All his military advisors and all the intelligence services, from what we know at this point, we may find out differently later, were telling him, the Afghan government can last at least 6 months, maybe even a year before the Taliban roll into Kabul. Well, as we all know, they rolled into Kabul in 10 days. 10 days. That's faster than we beat them in 2001. And we went in there and rolled them over pretty quickly. So Biden's planning failed because of inaccurate information and an inaccurate picture of what was going on actually on the ground in Afghanistan. So what happened is The unforeseen led to the unprepared, leading to chaos and suffering. Biden is doing the right thing, even if the execution leaves much to be desired. He could have done something even without Trump. You know, Trump set this all up in the beginning, and Biden took the ball and said, okay, I never thought we should be there still anyway, so I'm going to man up, and I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to say, this is it. We're leaving. We're out of here. We're gone. We can fault the execution, but we cannot fault the intent. We should not have been there for 20 years. We should have never stayed that long in Afghanistan. We should have been out of there by 2003, no later. We had everything in place where we could have left, but because of the stubbornness of the Republicans in charge at that time, George W., Mr. Cheney, dead Donnie Rumsfeld, and all the military establishment at that time. Oh no, we're going to kill every last one of them. We're going to destroy every last Taliban. Well, that didn't work out very well, now did it? So here we are today, having this chaotic, confusing, deadly withdrawal and citizens fleeing Afghanistan. What we have here is exactly like what happened in Saigon. The North Vietnamese rolled into town, panicked Americans, panicked South Vietnamese folks were trying to get out of Saigon any way they could. We flew helicopters from our embassy out to aircraft carriers in the Pacific Ocean, and we left ignominiously, humiliated, and it was bad. It was really, really bad. And this has that same feel to it. This is like Saigon 2.0. The reason it feels like Saigon in 1975 is because we should have left in 2003. And as a result of staying there too long, we have the same situation. We have the bad guys rolling into town, and we're trying to bail out and get all of our people out and all of our friends out as fast as we can. Now, why should we have never been in Afghanistan for 20 years? Well, we failed to learn the lessons of history. We failed to learn the lessons of history from Afghanistan defeating Great Britain. The British were there from 1839 to 1919 when they finally left after World War I had basically destroyed their empire. It just needed to fall in. World War II finished it off, but it was already on the way out the door by the end of the Great War in 1918, and then after the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. So Afghanistan defeated Great Britain. Afghanistan defeated the former USSR. They were there from 1979 to 1989, and it so sapped their empire's resources that the USSR collapsed not that long after, on the 26th of December 1991, and was replaced with the Russian Federation and a lot of states that used to be Soviet republics. And finally, because we didn't get the message, we didn't learn our lesson, we thought we can do it when nobody else had ever done it, we hung around way too long. We hung around for 20 years. That's longer than the USSR did. And look what it did to them. Afghanistan defeated us, the United States of America, because we stayed too long. We went in there to get Al-Qaeda, and we went in there to get the Taliban out of power. We did both. And if we had let them surrender like they wanted to, let them take part in the interim government planning like they offered to and wanted to, I think the situation in Afghanistan would have been very much different than what it is today. It would have been a whole different ball game. We would not be fleeing like thieves in the night. Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. No one wins there. It's too tribal, it's too feudal, and it's just too hard to navigate in because the terrain is so forbidding. Kabul, the capital city, the main city, is way, way to the east, and it's down in a bowl surrounded by mountains. Everything else in Afghanistan is pretty much mountains. And that's hard to operate in. You know, we were having difficulties because places we would normally use helicopters, we had a hard time because the air was too thin, because it was too high in the sky. Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. And if we had paid any attention to history instead of being full of arrogance and misplaced self-confidence, we would not have attempted to do what we did there. If we had invaded the country, we would have gone in, taken out the Taliban, destroyed the Al-Qaeda ability to operate from Afghanistan, let the Taliban surrender, let them take part in the government, and left. That would have been in like 2003, 2004. But no, we thought, yeah, so what? It happened to everybody. It's not going to happen to us. No, not the United States of America. We're too powerful. We're too bad. We can handle it. We can, bring it on. Well, that didn't work out so well, as we're seeing right now. So, what's my final thought here? This is a tragic, sad, and entirely preventable situation. We didn't look to the knowledge that we had and use it in a way that would help us do the right thing. And so here we are. We knew better. We knew better. History told us nobody wins in Afghanistan except the Afghans. And we stayed anyway. So we need to take this lesson to heart and resolve not to have any more big foreign adventures like this. This is not World War II. This is not even World War I. This was something that we could have handled a different way if we had wanted to. We didn't really even need to invade their country like we did. But we did. And we blew it. That's what it boils down to. The United States of America has failed. And it's not a good look. It's not pretty. And I'm so sorry that it happened. And we just have to live with what we have wrought. We made the bed. We got to sleep in it. I'd like to say I hope you enjoyed today's video, but this was not an enjoyable video to make. I didn't like doing this one. But if you learned something from it, or you found it helpful in some way, or you just, wanted to hear somebody rant about Afghanistan that wasn't you, I hope you'll share the video and like and subscribe below. Also, I need to pay the bills. This is the only thing I'm doing right now that makes any money. So I hope that you'll support me on PayPal or Venmo in the pinned comment below. I'm Alan, and I'm driven to know you be too.